Okay, my name is Bobby Vaught. This is lesson number 9 in a series, Everything You Need to Know to Understand Investing. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So we're going to talk about profit margin today. In the last lesson, lesson 8, we were talking about bonds, and I mentioned in that lesson that we were talking about a very important metric. We're going back to stocks again. We're going to talk about a very important metric called cash flow. I changed my mind. We're going to talk about profit margin today, and we're going to talk about cash flow another time. Okay, so before we do that, I needed to clarify something that I mentioned in lesson 8. We're talking about bonds and understanding investing. The best time to be in bonds, if you're going to buy bonds, would be when interest rates are trending down, not up. Okay, and for all the reasons explained in lesson number 8, when interest rates go down, the price of a bond goes up. You could sell it in the secondary market when interest rates are low, and then after the price goes up, and then you want to go back to the stocks. A very important, a very legitimate strategy many people have employed with success is they're in bonds when interest rates are going down. When interest rates get very low and have no place else to go but up, they go back to the stock market. I needed to clarify something, however. When I said the best time to be in bonds is when interest rates are trending down, which is true, I meant that relative to other times you could be in bonds, such as the worst time to be in bonds is when interest rates are low and trending up. I did not mean that relative to the stock market. Historically, the stock market has been the asset class that has created the most wealth. And it's very important to understand why, because you are an owner of capital. When the company gets bigger, the world gets bigger, the company sells more product, they can increase the dividend. Very important to understand the dividend growth. I'm real big on dividend growers. Go back to lesson 3, and I went through a lot of that in detail. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. When you buy a bond, you're not an owner of capital, you're just making a loan. You don't own the company, you're making a loan to them. They don't increase the dividend of a bond. A bond doesn't pay a dividend. It pays interest. There's a difference, okay? But bondholders get what they asked for. They bought a bond. They made a loan. That's what a bond is. And they don't increase the coupon rate because it's not you're not an owner of capital. If you buy a 30-year bond at J.P. Morgan, for example, they don't increase in the company maybe, I don't know, doubles, quadruples over 30 years. They don't increase your coupon. You got what you asked for. You got paid interest, okay, over the course of over the life of that bond. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, so let's talk about profit margin. We'll go back to the stock market here. A very important metric to look at, and first let's define it. So on the income statement, and I'm going to be very basic here, the income statement can get very intricate, but just kind of being very basic here, you have revenues minus costs is the profit. That makes sense. It's what you took in minus what you spent is the profit. So revenues minus costs is the profit. So then you take that profit and divide it by the revenue, and that tells you the profit margin expressed. It's a percentage, okay? So for example, for every $100 of revenue, if there was $90 worth of cost, that's $10 worth of profit. 10 divided by 100 is 10% profit margin. If you had $100 worth of revenue, $95 worth of cost, profit of $5, divide that by the revenue, profit margin of 5%. The revenue, the profit margin is one of the best indicators of the financial health of a company. It's why? Because it's expressing how far above the costs are the revenues. Okay, so it's a good indicator of the financial health of a company. All of that profit margin, however, needs to be taken into context with the sectors. Some sectors are going to have better profit margin than others. Some industries are going to have better profit margins than others. In groceries, Kroger has a 1.4% profit margin. A lot of the things that you find at the grocery store, like Hormel, has a 6.4% profit margin. These are thin profit margins relative to other things you could where you could, that you could invest in. Some of the best profit margins right now happen to be in the credit card companies. Visa, about 54% profit margin. MasterCard, 46% profit margin. Discover, 26% profit margin. Some of the best profit margins are in the credit card companies right now. Discover is also a bank. It's treated like a bank for legal purposes and all that. In any event, so that's where some of the best profit margins are right now. Microsoft is about 36%. Apple, 26% profit margin. These are pretty healthy profit margins. So you want to look at the profit margin. You're looking for a higher number, not lower. And you also want to look at the trend of that profit margin. When in my portfolio, if I see a profit margin going down, decreasing, that doesn't necessarily mean you should sell it, but it's just something to look at. And if you see it decreasing consistently, not a good sign. You want to see that profit margin high, and you want to see it staying high. Okay, so make no mistake, when company's not making a profit anymore, they won't have a reason to be in business, and they won't be. Okay, and this is, I'm going to do a whole lesson sometime on the importance of not buying into the idea of buy and hold forever. Nothing is ever buy and hold forever. Eastman Kodak. Okay, people who bought Eastman Kodak back in, I don't know, maybe 1940, they did really well, but for a while, but they're not in business anymore. They didn't keep up with the technology and move into other things and so forth. So, very important to understand that the profit margins, there's never any such thing as buy and hold forever, and the profit margin is a great indicator of the financial health of a company. This lesson is going to be kind of short because I'm just kind of covering the basics here, but you're looking for a high number, and if you see that number trending lower, then it's not a good sign. Okay, so that covers profit margin, at least for now. So that was lesson 9. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. In each lesson, I'm going to put a link. I'll put it in the description below. I'll put a link to lesson 1, and each lesson has a link to the next lesson, so they're all easy to find. Okay, so we've covered a lot of territory here so far in just 9 lessons. In any event, so this is Saturday, August 17th, 2024. I'll do another lesson. Lesson 10 will be next Wednesday. Until then, I hope you're having a great weekend. I hope life is treating you well, and see you next time.